Bryan, thanks so much for taking a few minutes today. Why don't we start a little bit by introducing us to who you are, your organization, and we'll start there.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Thanks for spending some time with me. But yeah, Bryan Christianson, I'm the head of sales for the Revenue Cycle Solutions division with TrueBridge. We are providing, as it says, revenue cycle solutions to healthcare providers. That can be hospitals, health systems, medical groups, really focusing in on helping them optimize both their top line in terms of getting paid for the services that they're providing, but also their bottom line and trying to do it as cost effectively as we can.
There's no shortage of need there. When we look at hospitals and revenue cycle, they're all underwater, and it's an incredibly crowded space. Certainly, I don't need to tell you, dealing with sales, how challenging it's become. What was it that first attracted you to Connex?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been really attractive, and I think of not just myself, but our team members. So I've got folks that work across the country, and what we're charged with day in and day out is engaging with hospital executives, mostly on the finance side, the revenue cycle side, and just getting an opportunity to talk to them about what their challenges are, and ultimately trying to determine, do we have a solution to some of the challenges they're experiencing. And as you can imagine, they do get a lot of phone calls. They do get a lot of emails. There's a lot of folks that are requesting their time and wanting to do the same things that we're doing. So I think one of the real advantages to the relationship with Connex was it provides a much more warmer and kind of intentional introduction to those folks who have, through their relationship with Connex, said, this is a specific problem we have. Connex, do you have any suggestions on folks that we can talk to? And really kind of having a door open, but also some instant credibility to come in as a potential solution to some of the issues that they're experiencing in the revenue cycle.
Yeah, and I think if we can deconstruct that a little bit, the first part is, why you? When we look at, again, the space is incredibly crowded, and part of that exercise when we start working together is breaking down the value proposition, right? It's not just taking what you give us and throwing a one-sheeter over to them. It really is trying to understand not just who you are and what you do, but why you do what you do relative to the ubiquitous competition in this space. So maybe you could talk a little bit to what that exercise was like when we first started to encapsulate you in our synthesis.
Yeah, I think from a value proposition standpoint, that's part and parcel to what we're trying to do, right? We truly are trying to create value, and in the revenue cycle space, often that's a pretty measurable value proposition in terms of, mostly around top line, in terms of helping them get claims out, helping them be paid in a timely manner, helping them even work through issues like claims denials, collecting from patients, things like that. So, part of the exercise and kind of laying out the value proposition, one is certainly a point of discovery, but also is starting to really try to understand their pain points, their challenges, and then articulating based on the set of solutions we have, both in services and technologies. Do we think we have an opportunity to impact that? We tend to serve a particular market, which are organizations that are characterized as community and sometimes often smaller rural hospitals. So there's no place in the market that's probably feeling the pain more.
That's right.
Things like cash flow, reimbursement, financial solvency than those organizations. So we feel it's like a real privilege for us to work with those organizations, and you see how that cascades down to not just having a healthy bottom line for those organizations, but allows them to employ people in their community, obviously care for the patients in their community, and have a bright future as it relates to their performance financially and just their sustainability in those communities.
Yeah, and so many of those smaller rurals are getting eaten up by the larger systems, and so part of that for us is trying to identify, once we get that messaging, trying to identify someone who is opportunely looking for what you have. Maybe you can talk to a little bit about how we prepare you through our reports that we're giving you.
Yeah, I mean, it's immensely helpful. While I feel like our team and our organization are filled with thoughtful, talented people, what we receive from Connex, in addition to kind of the warm introduction through the Connex relationship, is a fairly detailed summary in a document delivered to us that outlines the conversations that you've had previously with these folks, to include a fair amount of discovery around specific areas of need that those members have articulated in their conversations in the revenue cycle. So going in, we generally have a pretty good understanding of what those needs are, how we need to be prepared to speak to that, and frankly, it makes the calls even maybe a little more efficient, because some of that discovery work's already occurred in terms of just understanding some of the background, some of the drivers. So I think it tends to make the discussions run a little more productive than if it was just, hey, we're coming in with a little bit of a blank sheet of paper trying to do some of that front end discovery work.
Yeah, and we can do that a few different ways. We do that with the virtual introductions, and then here, right, at our Connexion, maybe you can talk about the differences of those, where you find value in either and or both of those.
Yeah, I think an event like this, where you're able to sit face to face with members, is a little bit different than the virtual. We value both of them. When you're in the in-person, I call it connective tissue. Particularly through the pandemic time, we probably lost a little bit of that connective tissue.
For sure.
And when you're dealing with people at a human level, and you're able to sit across the table with them, or sit in a chair in the hallway and have a face-to-face conversation, there's just something a little bit different about that. There's a way to ask questions and get their responses that maybe works a little different, works a little more productively. So I think these in-person meetings are instrumental into building, or in some cases, we had a meeting this morning, which is somebody we've talked to previously, but it was virtual. You had a little bit of rapport building going on there, but now we're really kind of able to take maybe a little bit more of a next step with them in terms of building that rapport and the relationship. The virtual meetings are a great complement to the in-person, and what is nice about the virtual is that as much as we want to be in person and out in front of folks, we've got limitations, they got limitations. And so I've got folks that are spread really across all parts of the country. We're engaging with clients all over the country. And so it's a nice opportunity to bring us together in a virtual space. It saves a little bit of time, a little bit of money, but yet I still think they can be just as productive. And often, just in the case this morning, it's a first step towards subsequent discussions that we can have with them, whether that's on-site or virtual meetings.
Yeah, well, that's what we endeavor to do is create a safe environment, not a networking event that's transactional, but a relationshiping event, right? You talked about relationship, and that's why we refer to Connexion, because it is about opportunities that might be near term, but it also, different than a networking event, it is about relationships that you've built, i.e. your follow-up meeting this morning, right? Meeting with someone that you've already met with, because it is a time. These are enterprise opportunities. They take time to nurture and cultivate.
Yeah, and out of respect for those individuals, prospects, or clients, but also respect for us. I think time is a finite resource. We all have to value it.
Yeah.
And so when we look at the opportunity to have a conversation with those folks, I'd like to think that they value their time. And so if they're making time and space to have a conversation, that's going to be meaningful to them. And we want to make sure it's meaningful to us to be prepared and make it productive. And so that's where the information in advance from Connex, or the ability to kind of leverage the relationship that you built with them, sort of the equity that you built with them as a trusted partner, helps out and makes the use of that time productive and valuable.
Yeah, well, and no matter how much we value relationship, at the end of the day, we don't have a business unless we close deals, right?
Yeah.
It's necessary. So, maybe you can, I would imagine it is. So yeah, maybe you can speak to that too. If you've got a case study or two, you can.
Yeah, a great example of success we've had through a Connex relationship is an organization called Frederick Health. They're probably an hour west of the Baltimore area in Frederick, Maryland. Really ideally suited for TrueBridge in the sense of they're about a 200-bed community hospital. I think they're the type of organization that is large enough to have meaningful needs, and they're attractive to us in terms of a client, but also the type of organization that still values the service and kind of a personal touch that they have in the relationship with their vendors. And so, it was an opportunity to get introduced to them previously. So we had not had a relationship or familiarity with some of the revenue cycle leadership at Frederick Health. That was facilitated by Connex through an introductory conversation. Interestingly enough, it started around potential interest they had with some of the revenue cycle technology. And so we were able to have actually multiple conversations with them to include both virtual and on-site product demonstrations, discovery, things like that. Through getting to know them, hopefully through building some credibility with them around our understanding of the revenue cycle space, we're actually able to educate them that within our portfolio of solutions, we do more than just technology, and we have quite a few services to help folks as well. And sometimes timing is everything. And in this case, while we have continued to have conversations with them on the technology side, they started to have an emergent need around coding services. And that ultimately became the place where we were able to initiate a partnership with them. And so, that's a great, testimonial to me of, I think in every case, in all salesperson's dream, it's, you strike it hot on the first call and boom, we got an opportunity to develop a business relationship. But that really came about through probably 6 to 8 months of, you start, with an initial conversation, and as you're continuing to have conversations, learning more about each other, I think building trust in, understanding our level of expertise, and also obviously us getting to know them a little bit more. The opportunity presented itself to help them, and the next thing you know, we're working with each other.
That's fantastic.
More importantly now, having good outcomes for them. So
be with it, and I think that reflects well, not just on us, but hopefully for Connex, that you've selected the right types of partners like a TrueBridge, so that organizations like Frederick or others feel good about, hey, if you all were to recommend somebody, if somebody that you've vetted and has a good reputation in terms of quality and service, to do the good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes. I really appreciate it, and we value our relationship with TrueBridge.
All right.